Hey there guys, those of you who know me know I am fond of camera work and being on camera, and I got a bit of an itch, so I felt like doing a video, and I thought it might be cool to go over some of my coffee setup, see what I've been using lately, and I've kind of like learned a lot about coffee in the last year or so. None of this is like expert stuff. I just wanted to share what I've been doing. A lot of people are probably going to see some of these things and scoff a little bit, which is totally fine. I do sometimes use a scale. I don't always. When I'm making coffee in the morning, I obviously don't necessarily feel like being very specific. Maybe after I've had my coffee, maybe when I'm making one later in the day. But I do have a handful of methods that I use. I'll probably do separate videos for them, but what I wanted to do right here is my AeroPress method. It's a modified method from the, I believe it's a Stumptown method, just using 1 scoop, or I believe it's 30 grams of coffee, 30 or 40 grams of coffee. That's what I've been doing lately. I used to do the kind of just basic AeroPress method that kind of like comes in the instructions. I've tried a few others, but I think this one's kind of the one I think is best, and especially since it doesn't go through as much coffee that quickly. So here are a handful of the things that I use. I used to use this fantastic Kyocera hand grinder. It's ceramic, which is great because it doesn't rust, and it's a burr grinder, which means it's got two little cylinders in there that essentially just get closer and closer together the further down the beans go, and that means that you're going to get a really nice even grind. My problem with this is that it's a hand grind, so it does take time. It does take a little bit of elbow grease. And my other problem is that the settings are not particularly accurate. It's really kind of difficult to get a consistent setting over and over again, especially if you're swapping between things. For example, if you have a Chemex, which I do, which is another video. But if you want to bounce between them, it's not necessarily ideal, but it's a great grinder, especially for the price. And the problem is to get a really nice burr grinder that's automatic, electric, they're very expensive. So this one's really affordable, but I'll set this aside. The Bodum brand, that I'm sure you might see it if you have a French press, chances are pretty good that it's a Bodum French press if you live in the US. Bodum and JCPenney apparently had a bit of a falling out, and Bodum products were like 80% off. So I managed to get a really nice Bodum grinder, which is right here, for I think $40. It's a $140 grinder. But it's fantastic. It's got a ton of settings up here, all the way from espresso over to a French press situation. I'm guessing this thing in the middle is a Chemex, although it hasn't really done very well in a Chemex for me. I've burnt coffee using that setting. It's got a timer up at the top, and it's got an on-off button, switch, and then a button to turn things on and off up at the top. It's also got a great little hopper up at the top for the beans, and a good little catch at the bottom. My main complaint about this thing right now is that it's just very messy. When you pull it out of there, it's just, even if you tap it to get the grounds out, and just like there are grounds all over the place right now. The other really big thing that I use was a gift this year for my birthday, which I was super stoked about. I was waiting for this kettle to come out for a very long time. This is the Bonavita, a variable temperature electric kettle. I'm going to actually go ahead and put this on right now, so that we can not have to wait for it later. I'm going to set it right at 210 for an AeroPress brew, which has been working for me. Again, some of you might scoff. I also have this Friis coffee canister vault. They call it a vault. That's going to be a great sound for the rest of the video. But it's really, really nice. It's got this little cap on the top to, I believe, get carbon dioxide out of the can and keep it from getting in, so it keeps the beans really nice and fresh. It's got a latch on the side, which I really like, and it's got a little date on the top, so you can see when you put your beans in here. It's really good. Oh my god, it smells fantastic. It's fantastic. And then, of course, the main event, we have the actual AeroPress itself. My original AeroPress of I think 3 or 4 years finally broke fairly recently, so this one's pretty new. It slides in and out really, really nicely. I'm also going to be doing the inverted method, which I prefer. You get, I feel anyway, you get a lot more oils that way. which is something that you want, which leads me into the filter of my choice. Obviously, you can use your paper filters, which come with an AeroPress. They are fine. I use them for a long time. You can reuse them if you don't really care that much. I wouldn't recommend it, but you can. But you really don't need to. These paper filters last forever. Like, I haven't. This is another unopened pack, but I just have never even needed to open it, especially since I have recently switched to this little beauty. This is the Able disc. This is the disc Fine, actually. It's a $20 metal filter for your AeroPress, which means A, you're not running through paper all the time, but B, more importantly, you've got metal with holes in it as opposed to shoving the coffee through the paper. Paper filters, and this is true for just about any method as far as I'm aware, correct me if I'm wrong, paper filters tend to let fewer oils through. And a lot of those oils are stuff that you want. You want that it adds to the mouthfeel, and it just, I think, is a better. You can see them floating on top and it's over. I just think it's better, and this does actually do the trick. Almost dropped it. It's important to note it's a disc Fine. Able made a disc a while ago that they got a lot of complaints about. It was, the holes were just a little bit too big, it was too easy to clog. I have had no problems with this one whatsoever. I really like it. So I would highly recommend spending the $20 on this thing. I think it's really, really great. The only thing I miss is not being able to just pop out everything from the AeroPress into the trash. Obviously you gotta take it off, open it up, and do that whole situation. So, you pop this thing into the filter word side up, and let's get started. This is the little stirrer. Now, normally, I don't actually leave beans in this hopper. I prefer to leave them in the vault because I think this does a better job of storing them. But the bags that I get, oh, that's another important thing. This is Costa Rican Terrazzo coffee from World Market. It's not amazing coffee, but it's affordable. I do like getting nicer coffee from time to time, but that is not the thing that I keep on a daily basis, because I do actually put the coffee that I make from this into protein shakes too often. So I don't normally keep beans this way, but because the bag is so big it doesn't fit in the vault, I just dump them into the hopper for now. I also don't like doing that with this grinder in particular, because you should not change the grind setting on this. If there are beans in the hopper, it needs to be running in order for you to change them. So it has to run, and then you need to quickly move it to where it needs to go, which I'm obviously not going to do now. And that's kind of frustrating. So there's that. But I have figured out, after testing a couple of scoops, because I have the AeroPress scoop, which is about, it's either 30 or 40 grams, forgive me, that about 10 seconds of grind here is about the right amount. Like I said, I'm not too super picky and specific with this stuff. I don't know that my palate is sophisticated enough to be able to tell the difference. So, with that in mind, let's go ahead and get started. What I like to do with the AeroPress itself is stick the plunger up to the 1. I leave it there, or sorry, the 4, and I leave it right there. And then I like to get the water running really hot. That's the other thing. I realize filtered water is better. I know. The problem is I don't want to have to waste space in the fridge or on the counter or whatever for a Brita. And the only other filter we have is in the fridge, and then that comes out cold, and it takes longer for it to heat up. But I know if you want the best possible experience, you're going to want filtered water. I'm just using tap water, especially since this is just a demonstration. I get that running as hot as I can. I don't want to waste the boiling water, because this actually, our water happens to run really, 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 really hot. So I get that running as hot as possible, and I go ahead and fill that sucker up right to the top. You're going to want to preheat your AeroPress. This will keep the coffee itself from cooling off too quickly. It's just good practice. I'm going to do the same with the disc. This does two things. It preheats it. I don't know if that really makes that big of a difference, but more importantly, the water is going to make it stick to the cap, so that when you put it on upside down, that doesn't happen. So I'm going to go ahead and wet this one with the same hot tap water. Sometimes I just use the boiling water as well. So our water is boiled. Let's go ahead and get a grind going. I'm going to turn this sucker on right here. And let's go ahead and get ourselves a mug. Now, at this juncture, there are two things you can do. You can either grab yourself a mug, or you can grab yourself a nice tall glass, which I like to do when it's warm outside, sometimes even during the winter. So you can go ahead and fill that sucker with ice. When I make iced coffee, I realize a cold brew is probably also best case scenario, but that takes much longer and I don't have the equipment. So what I do is I believe it's known as the Japanese method of brewing directly onto ice. I have noticed a slight difference in flavor, just a little bit more crisp, but that might just be a placebo effect. So take of that what you will. But when I make iced coffee, that's how I do it. I just brew directly onto that. And then I keep some simple syrup in the fridge, just a little bit of sugar and some extra water. But for now, we're just gonna do a hot cup of coffee. Now that everything's preheated, this, by the way, is a fantastic kettle. This is gonna keep the water at the temperature that you set it at. It's really, really nice. My only complaint is that it actually goes off when you pull it up, and then you gotta reset it and put it back down, but it does the job. So in the meantime, let's set this for just over 10 seconds and get about 1 cup's worth of grind, and go. Now that wasn't so bad, was it? It wasn't so bad. All right, so let's shut this sucker off. Let's give that a tap. Make sure we get as much out of it as we can. There we go. So now we've got this stuff in here. This kettle we've got sitting at about 209 right now. And I'm gonna go ahead and just drop a little bit in here. Make sure we get everything wet, which is what we wanna do for a bloom. A good bloom, if the coffee is freshly roasted and freshly ground, you'll see a whole bunch of bubbles. You'll see a bunch of stuff like that on YouTube. This tends not to bubble quite so much, but I give that just a couple of seconds until I stop seeing bubbles. I realize a lot of that is the water just moving through. So we get that bloom in there. Once we're all done with the bloom and we stop seeing bubbles, we're gonna go ahead and just dump some more coffee into there. Doesn't quite matter how. But I like to dump it in all the way up to just over the 1. Just about there, and set that back. Then we're gonna grab our little slurry mixer, give that a good spin. I don't like to leave this in too long, but I don't just turn it over and get it out right away either. Now is usually when I'll go and grab a glass of ice, or go and grab a mug, but I give it just, you know, about like 30 seconds maybe. I'm gonna re-wet the filter. I wanna get this some boiling water since I don't really need the rest. And then we're gonna go ahead and throw this on here. And hold both sides because the pressure can actually spit the top out, and you don't want that. And then I just give this a gentle push. You're not trying to like shove this out through the filter. Just a gentle push is enough. You'll feel it moving. It's not moving, it won't move slowly, but it won't move fast either. And then once you start to get towards the bottom, we're gonna hear a hiss. And that's the air that you see here between the coffee and the plunger starting to escape through the filter or the disc, depending on what you're using. At that point, I usually stop. Couple of reasons. Mostly, I don't want to apply any pressure, any actual physical pressure other than the air, to the beans, to the grounds themselves. As far as I understand, that's going to extract stuff you don't want. So here we go. Let's see if you can hear that. There's a slight hiss. I let it go for just a second, and then I stop. And then I give that a good shake. Set that down. Get the water running cold, obviously. You want to hold this right side up, or upside down, when you do this, so you don't drip hot coffee all over yourself. Give both of these things a good rinse. The disc does take a little bit of, not finesse, but a little bit of, rubbing. Just use your thumb. I'm not aware of anything on this thing that'll harm it in this way. I also give it a bend both ways, just in case there is anything lodged in some of those holes. I have seen a handful, but they do tend to dislodge fairly quickly. So toss that back in there, and then get these grounds into the trash. There we are. Get this rinsed off, get it dried off, and then I don't store the AeroPress like this. I don't think, yeah, it's not applying any pressure to the plunger, but just to be sure, I pull it out and then I store it this way. I keep it over here with all of my other coffee paraphernalia. So at this point now, you've got a fairly strong, I would say like 1 shot's worth in an espresso equivalent of coffee. You can water it down if you like, get a little bit closer to an Americano. I tend not to. I tend to leave it right about here. These are kind of big mugs anyway, but it's about like to here on the outside. And I tend to leave it as is. If you want sugar, pop some sugar in there. And if you want some milk, you can either steam it up or just toss it in as is. But nice. It shouldn't smell bitter. It shouldn't smell burnt. It shouldn't smell like there's like some acrid quality to it. That means if it does smell that way, it means you've overexposed it. I tend to err on the side of underexposing if at all possible. This stuff isn't, like I said, amazing coffee, but it does smell pretty good. So yeah, good AeroPress coffee, you should be able to just drink black. So, all right, so I'm gonna do another video for Chemex, which I'm actually still learning to do. I'm not like super good at it or anything, but I very much appreciate you guys taking the time to watch this silly little video. I'm gonna link to all the products that I use in the description. And if you have any questions, let me know in the comments. If you see anything I screwed up royally, let me know in the comments. But until then, I will see you in some other video at some future date. Thanks for watching.